secure mobile. I want to talk a bit about what our users' expectations are first. Security, first and foremost. I think everybody in this room recognizes it. As a result, I'm not going to talk about security, but certainly important enough that it's worth touching on briefly. A mobile-first experience. What does that mean? We've now got to be at par with best-in-class retail websites and applications. It's no longer acceptable for us to deliver solutions that are competitive when measured against the other banks. We've now got to deliver solutions that are exceptional relative to the entire retail landscape. And finally, performance. Many organizations have failed to meet their clients' expectations around mobile speed and reliability, although we spent years of focus and investment in terms of ensuring that same performance exists as far as our desktop users are concerned. Exceptional design and usability is meaningless if the speed and reliability isn't there. So I've got an operations group under me, but I've also got a team of designers who spend a lot of time pounding away and making sure that we're delivering best-in-class experience for our users. However, we all recognize that all of that investment's out the window if we're not providing a fast and reliable service. What happens if you're not providing that service? Well, if your users are dissatisfied with performance, 49% of tablet and 40% of smartphone users are unlikely to visit that site ever again. 33% of tablet and 26% of smartphone users are less likely to purchase from that company, and those are statistics that apply across all channels, not just mobile and traditional web. At bottom here, I've got a couple of graphs that demonstrate the correlation between page response time and abandonment rate. On your left is iPhone, on the right iPad. As you can see, there is a very strong correlation between an increase in a page load time and the likelihood that a user is going to abandon that page. This, to me at least, is probably the most valuable portion of my talk from an audience perspective. And I wish that somebody had walked me through this type of rationale a few years ago when we embarked on our performance journey within CIBC. What we found was that although performance is important to our technology partners, and I'm a business guy operating within a broader technology landscape, but what we found was they're absolutely getting the value of performance. They understand that they've got to provide websites and mobile applications that are up and available, but the speediness of those applications wasn't necessarily a priority for them. And we needed to sell that within CIBC to the technology arms in order to get the performance we were ultimately looking for. And what we learned was if you go out and you find a solution that delivers against the security but also the performance, and you pitch the security aspects of that solution, then as a business, you'll ultimately get the performance that doesn't necessarily resonate as well as some of those security pieces. So a few things that we found successful in terms of pitching within CIBC. Defending against malicious service attacks to ensure reliability and availability. Defending against data breaches. Meeting any compliance regulations that you may face. Those are all things that really do resonate well at an executive level within a bank, and probably more so than, hey, your site's going to move faster for its users. But as a business guy who's got sales objectives, I'm interested in that performance too. So the performance piece for me means that when I'm hitting my large demand spikes, I've got a consistent level of performance. I'm giving my users a consistent experience wherever, whenever, whereas historically prior to implementing our performance solution, we saw a decent degree of variability there. And as already mentioned, without that performance benefit, you're seeing a real impact in terms of customer acquisition and retention. So some solid metrics around the results since deploying Awesomeness web performance solution. We've seen a 140% global improvement in load time, global meaning around the world, 96% improvement in load time from within Canada specifically, and 83% offloaded traffic from CIBC servers. I mentioned that one. I think it's important because That's also an argument that resonates strongly with our technology folks in that we've taken 83% of the load that historically our CIBC infrastructure was on the hook for supporting, managing, whatnot, and have now offloaded that. So that's got some real cost savings implications attached to it. We're seeing optimized performance. So across various networks, smartphones, tablets, and PCs, we're now delivering a consistently strong level of performance, which again, historically had demonstrated some real variability that is now flattened and being consistently low across the board. We're providing accelerated requests for dynamic content, so that means the back and forth that goes on between our end users and our data center and the clouds is now much faster. And finally, we've applied advanced caching. So we've taken our content out of our data centers and we've moved it very close to where the users are actually coming from, which has resulted in a reduced number of requests coming to the bank, reduced size in terms of the requests that do make it through to us, and all that ultimately results in accelerated rendering time for our clients. So here I've provided some metrics, and I had to do a little bit of fighting internally in order to provide some of this stuff, but I think it's important for you to see what our performance was like pre-implementation and how we're doing post-implementation. So here are our numbers previously, a selection of Canadian, US, international cities with load time across the bottom. And I've layered on our results post-implementation. So what our response times are now that we've got this performance solution in place. As you can see, Toronto's not all that significant in terms of result. And that's because that's where our primary data centers reside, and that data was close to the users there, so it was already pretty good. What I do want to point out, though, is those West Coast numbers. So if you look at Vancouver as an example, and I mentioned Vancouver because that was really the impetus for us embarking on this initiative, because we were seeing extremely poor response times as far as our West Coast user base was concerned, relative to what we were seeing for users who were in the Greater Toronto area close to our data centers. So we've addressed that gap in a big way. As you can see here, Vancouver is almost at par with Toronto, despite being on the opposite side of the country. And I think it's fair for you to apply that same sort of logic and finding to a New York, California type scenario in terms of geography. That was the last slide. I don't make a general practice getting up and talking about individual partner engagements. However, we did talk about this extensively internally. Believe that the partnership that exists between Akamai and CIBC has been strong enough and delivered results that were of a significant enough nature that we agreed to take the time out and get up here and talk about that. So I did just want to make mention of that. And certainly, as I mentioned earlier, if you've got questions for me now, happy to address those. If you'd like to hook up on a one-on-one basis and talk outside, then I'll certainly be around for that too. And as promised,